Coming up, lights, camera, racing. MidcoSN's first ever live racing event is in the books. We've got a full breakdown from River Cities Speedway. He may not look like your typical race car driver, but he refuses to let that slow him down. The story of Taylor Grove is this week's Inside Track. All that plus a historic win at Jackson Motorplex and another edition of Shop Talk. The green flag drops now. Let's go racing. How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson, and this is Midco Motorsports. The spotlight got a little brighter on River Cities Speedway last weekend with the track being featured right here on MidcoSN. Brian Shawn called all the action for us in Grand Forks, and he joins us now with highlights from this week's A Feature.
Jay, it was a fun night at the legendary Bull Ring with 75 cars on hand to compete. The INEX Legends making their only appearance of the season in Grand Forks, and a hard-fought three-way battle early on. Troy Hoff of Flasher working the low side, slipping past leader Brody Carlsrud of Moorhead. Dylan Johnson of Durbin and Tim Estenson of Fargo would give chase, but Hoff would not give up the top spot, winning his sixth feature on the Legends Tour this season.
The way my car is set up, I love these wet, tacky tracks. You know, we were a little loose in the heat, and we adjusted some air pressures and some other things for the feature, and the car worked great.
The Lightning Sprint main event was a two-car battle all the way to the checkered flag. Kelsey Peterson of East Grand Forks felt a lot of pressure from Greenbush, Minnesota's Dexter Vergston. Peterson was able to hang on to the top spot and notch her first ever feature victory, a big accomplishment for the 15-year-old daughter of late model driver Joey Peterson.
I did a few times, saw him coming left side of me, and I got a little nervous going into lap traffic, but kept hitting my marks and pulled it off.
Then it was time for the NLRA late models to take center stage, a competitive field of over 20 cars taking part. As the leaders get into lap traffic, the 1M of Mason Minsky loses the handle in turn 2. Manitoba's Ricky Weiss running second at the time has nowhere to go and makes contact. Weiss would finish fifth. Dustin Strand and Brad Sang had a good battle going up front, Strand making the pass for second on the high side with 2 laps to go, but pole sitter Bill Mooney of Selkirk, Manitoba would lead wire to wire using the high line to his advantage and cruising to the victory, his second win of the season.
Once you get up to speed, it's pretty hard to beat the high line when it's like that, and I like running that high line momentum, and I always say that running the bottom's like, going to work, but yeah, so like I say, it couldn't have worked out any better. High line is my cup of tea, and starting front row outside is a good night.
The Northern Outlaw Sprint Association Sprint Cars was the final race of the evening. Fargo's Jackson Moffett and East Grand Forks' Nick Amdahl battling for third midway through the race as they get together coming out of turn 4. Amdahl takes a wild ride down the front stretch, neither driver able to continue, but both would be okay. Austin Pierce started on the pole and would have to maneuver through lap traffic to hold off defending NOSA champion Wade Nygaard, but Pierce working through it, pulling away for his second win of the season, with Nygaard, Chris Ranton, Thomas Kennedy, and Casey Mack rounding out the top 5.
It actually helped me having the lap traffic there because I had to move down a couple times in 1 and 2 there, and I started to feel a little bit of rubber coming in down there, so every lap I started moving a little bit lower and lower to try to protect all the lanes I could.
Here to wrap things up from River Cities Speedway, our first ever live telecast here on Midco Sports Network of racing from this legendary track. Brian Shawn and Chris Schierick with you. And Chris, we didn't really know what to expect coming into this thing, but overall, this was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
This was a lot of fun. Track turned out great. The fans came out for a heck of a show, and this was a blast. I had such a good time. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, Chris, we talked about the track being racy, and it had changed a few times. They worked on it, but overall, there was some great racing in all 4 classes all night long. Yeah,
you had cars driving from the front of the pack, falling back. You had guys going from the back of the pack, middle of the pack, coming up, and it was passing everywhere, really. The leader had to pass lap traffic about 3 laps in that sprint car feature, and even as a leader, you still have to pass cars. I know we talked about with 26 sprint cars that started that race, how was it going to work out? Austin Pierce, he did a nice job maneuvering through lap traffic. No one really threatened him
throughout most of that race.
Yeah, Austin's a good driver. He's very aggressive. The way he drives into the corners and the way he handles himself in lap traffic, that's a veteran move. And he's, in my opinion, he's still a younger driver that has a lot to learn. And tonight he put on a clinic. He showed that he's a veteran driver.
Two classes that aren't out here very often, the Lightning Spritz and the Legends. Interesting to see those cars on this track. They didn't have a lot of experience here. It was a learning curve for them as well.
Yes, it was. And the track was still kind of huggy pole on the bottom, kind of follow the leader almost on the bottom. It would have been interesting to see if the track would have widened out a little bit, see 2 lanes with those guys. But if we'd have done that, we wouldn't have had very good racing in the late models and the sprint cars like we did.
And when you talk about the late models a little bit, Bill Mooney led, but there was a lot of jockeying for position, in particular in the top 6. We saw Brad Sang, Mike Balkin, Dustin Strand worked his way into second place. There was a lot of good racing, high and low, in that late model feature.
Yeah, it's just like with the sprint cars. I mean, if you're a leader, you're still passing lap traffic. It's one of those rare tracks that you have to be on your game, even as a leader, to win a race.
Overall, what do you take away from this first live event here? We didn't really know what to expect, as we mentioned going in, but overall, this had to be one of the brightest spots we've had in the local racing community, certainly in South Dakota, in quite some time.
Yeah, it is. I had a blast. I know you had a blast. As long as everybody else had a blast watching, that's what it's all about. This is dirt track racing 101 right here.
It was a lot of fun from this legendary track here that's over 100 years old in Grand Forks. That'll do it from us here at River Cities Speedway. Jay, back to you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Well, coming up, a busy weekend for those NOSA Sprints. Also included their annual appearance at Norman County Raceway. We'll catch up with them there after this. Well, one day before their most recent trip to Grand Forks, the NOSA Sprints made an annual appearance across the border. For the 12th time in series history, the group invaded Ada as special guests for the weekly show at Norman County Raceway. Fair food and fast cars on a beautiful night in Ada. After a brief intermission, a full field of 24 sprint cars rolled onto the track for the night's 410 feature. Wade Nygaard looking for his first NOSA win of the season, but he'd have his hands full with Thomas Kennedy driving the 82 Buffalo Wild Wings car. Nygaard, though, very crafty, working through lap traffic and able to hold on to the lead. With 5 laps remaining, here comes Mark Dobmar. Slides past Kennedy for second on a sweet move to the inside. But that's as close as Dynamite would get to the front. Nygaard keeps his eyes on the prize and goes wire to wire for his first victory since April 22nd at Cedar Lake Speedway in Wisconsin.
For our team, we've been, top 3 pretty much all the time everywhere we go. And early in the year, we got a win in Cedar Lake, and been kind of struggling to get the win here and with our home guys, and luckily we got one tonight, so we're pretty happy. When you get to lap cars, I just didn't want to make any mistakes, and luckily we got by. Had to contend with this guy here. He woke me up about halfway through.
You did awesome tonight.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
410 Sprints back at Jackson for the first time in nearly a month on Friday. We'll get to them in a bit. First, though, fans would be treated to a pretty good charge in the 305 Sprints. Madison Lake, Minnesota's Brandon Geldner had the 8th spot to start the race, but like Luft, he would quickly reel in the leaders. A few laps in, Geldner blows by the 81 of pole setter Jared Jansen on the outside, and he would dominate the rest of the way. Geldner collects his first win of the year at Jackson, and this one was a little extra special.
We had kind of a difficult week this week. My brother was in the hospital with some medical issues, so it really felt good to get the win tonight. We got a lot of laps around here, and my brother's kind of showed us how to get around, and it was good. So we put it on the top and got the W tonight.
Great story in the night's main event. 23-year-old Paige Polyak hadn't finished better than 11th in her first 5 starts in Jackson this season, but the Ohio native finally saw things come together. Polyak overtakes Scott Winters for the lead on lap 1, and after that, everyone else was racing for second. Polyak leads the whole way, becoming the first female driver to win a 410 feature at Jackson Motorplex. Taylor Grove is a regular in the Sport Mod division at Norman County, but he's not exactly your typical driver. We'll share his story when Midco Motorsports rolls on. When he's behind the wheel of his race car, Taylor Grove appears to be just another driver. And while there's actually a significant physical difference, normal is exactly what Grove wants you to see. MidcoSN's Greg Ankers has his story in this week's Inside Track.
Like all drivers, Taylor Grove has to take the time getting his car ready for racing every night. And also, like many drivers, he knew this is something he wanted to do since he was a kid.
Pulled the money together, bought my first race car, bought my first open trailer, bought all my parts, got the car fixed up, got a new body on it, and we were racing. And since then, it has been probably the best choice of my life.
But the way Taylor drives his car is unlike anyone else.
I wondered if I could do it myself, and a couple of guys, laughing and joking around, said, no, you couldn't race, it takes two hands. You had to say it, guys. You had to say it.
Yes, Taylor manages his 2,500-pound race car around the track with only one arm to guide him, a disability he's lived with since the summer of 1997, when he was just 2 years old.
Dad and I, we were working on one of my relatives' farmyards, 1.1 mile east of Shelley. Had one last load of soybeans to haul out before, we had all the bins cleaned out and harvest was starting in a couple weeks. Getting late in the evening, and so Dad's like, well, I need to get this one load into town. He was in the bin for a while, and of course I got curious because then all of a sudden I started watching the grain come out of the floor auger and going into the big one, going up to the truck, and Dad gets done sweeping it out as I'm still standing there, and he comes out the door and he says my name. I turn, and of course, standing in a pile of beans on a big rock surface, just lost my balance. And from there, I tipped in. And I was lucky that my dad grabbed me when he did, because I was about to roll over, and had I put my hand down, both arms would have been gone. It'd have been like that.
A 13-minute life flight from Shelley, Minnesota to a hospital in Fargo, North Dakota likely saved Taylor's life, but the accident did not deter him from pursuing his passion.
My third night in a Mod 4, I sat there. It was all right, finished mid-pack, was right behind everybody, made a couple little goofy errors, whatever. It was so new to racing, I didn't know any better. I sat in my trailer with my head between my knees going, what am I doing here?
Taylor is now in his second full season racing a sport mod, and he's getting better. After running middle of the pack much of last year, he's won 2 heat races this season and has finished as high as third in a feature race. His accomplishments make him an inspiration to many and a likely role model for anyone growing up with similar challenges.
If another kid approached me with a disability and said, hey, I wanted to get into a car, do you have any ideas how to help me? Okay, I will sit down and I will help that kid. If that meant I missed a race one night to go help them somewhere else, fine. I'm okay with that. I have no problem helping somebody else.
And that attitude and spirit is likely to carry Taylor as far as he wants to go with his racing career.
I'm by no means the greatest racer out there, but I'm doing pretty darn good for having one hand.
That again was Greg Ankers reporting. Now, in case you didn't notice, Grove's car number is 1RM. And if you're thinking that's a play on the fact that he's only got one arm, you're absolutely correct. However, it does also pay tribute to his 2 sisters, Rachel and Megan. Well, Clint Garner is up to his old tricks at Knoxville. We'll show you the highlights from his latest triumph after this. Clint Garner is already one of the top 360 drivers in Knoxville Raceway history, but his case to be number 1 seems to be gaining steam by the week. Garner's claimed 7 of the last 8 track championships in that division, and his 30 career victories is already good enough for second all time. Garner looked to add to that total Saturday, but he'd have to earn it. Matt Morrow, who came in second to Garner in the points, was ready to battle. Both guys would get to the front by the end of lap 1, with Morrow moving into the lead and Garner filing in behind. Next time around, they'd go head-to-head. Garner wrestles the top spot away from Morrow. Fast forward to lap 14 now. The 2 car back for more. Morrow shoots past to the inside, but Garner able to answer right back. And this time, Garner hangs on. He wins the battle and the war as he sails to his 3rd win of the year. No one else in the division has more than one. Moving over to Northwest Iowa now. Friday was mid-season championship night at Rapid Speedway. Lots of action in the sportsman's feature. Brian Crone had full control early, but he hits a roadblock with about 5 to go. Crone forced to bow out due to a broken camshaft. That gave the lead to Bryant Clausen, but 1 lap later, Andy Wazorek takes it away on the inside, and that would settle it. Wazorek gets his 4th victory in 5 weeks. Fans saw a wild ride early in the hobby stock feature. Thomas Crocked with a full barrel roll in turn 2. Take another look at this one. Crocked did come out of that uninjured. Some of the track's usual suspects rose to the top after that. Blake Aaron settled into the top spot, followed closely by Dustin Gulbranson, Alex Wiertsma, and Chad Loneman. After the next restart, Loneman makes his move. The 117L edges past Aarons for the lead here, and he would hold on from there. Loneman collects win number 2 in Rock Rapids. It was an emotional night for the LMSS Touring Series and points leader Darren Cordles. He was racing just days after the death of his father, but his heavy heart sure didn't slow him down. The 11K slingshots past 3 cars to complete the climb from 9th here, and you could probably guess how it went from there. Cordles notches his 6th straight LMSS victory to start the season, but this one certainly had a little bit more meaning.
It's just kind of a fitting way to end the week. It's been a long week, but it was really fun to end it this way, I guess.
Brandon Murphy was at the head of the pack to start the USRA stock car feature, but the 18A literally loses its grip on lap 2. Murphy spins in turn 4. He would eventually bow out of the race altogether. Dustin Gulbranson inherited the lead, but he wouldn't stay there for long. Randy Brands cuts underneath the 45 in turn 3, and that was it. Brands drives on for his 1st win of the year at Rocky. The annual BMOD special rounded out the night. Lots of cautions in this one, so let's get right to the good stuff. Final lap, the 91 of Tyler Johnson trying to chase down race leader Maya Christensen. Johnson actually gets him for a moment here, but a bobble in turn 4 proves costly. Christensen hangs on to win in his 1st start in Rock Rapids this season.
All the restarts and everything were a little nerve-wracking. I knew Tyler had a good run on me coming in 1 and 2 there, and 3 and 4 I just got up high and drove them up, up the track. But last lap coming, if I'd had some steering, it'd have been maybe a little different outcome. But it's racing.
Sprint cars feature an awesome combination of speed and power. We're going to take a closer look at the makeup of these machines after this. Well, there is no doubt about it. Sprint cars, particularly those of the 410 variety, are some impressive machines, and there's a ton that goes into making these winged rockets fly. For more on that, we send it to Brian Shawn and Chris Schierick for another edition of Shop Talk.
Back for more Shop Talk. We are in the beautiful garage here. Can't even call it that. Beautiful shop of Mark Dobmeyer. Beautiful warehouse where he has all of his cars and gear. And Chris Schierick joining me here to talk a little bit about sprint cars in general, Chris. And I want to give just a general overview of the cars. You drove these things for 15 years, so can you just point out some of the special features, what makes this specific car unique?
Well, first off, this is a sprint car. With the driver, the whole car weighs 1,400 pounds. We also have a 410 cubic inch small block Chevy. There's not too much small block Chevy about it, but it is a 410 cubic inch, about 900 plus horsepower in that. So the horsepower to weight ratio is pretty insane. That makes these cars one of the fastest cars, the baddest cars on dirt.
And I know one thing that you talk about is people say they don't have starters, you push them off. The drive shaft goes from there to there, and that it's right in between the driver's legs. Some people don't realize that that thing is spinning at a high RPM right in the driver's cockpit.
Yep, it like you mentioned, there's an in and out gear, or in and out box. You put the car in gear, you turn your fuel on, you have a push start, or a four-wheeler or a push truck, push start you, and you flip the switch and it's go time. You have your drive shaft right in between your legs, like you were saying. That spins at about 8,500 RPM. And there's a little angel hoop in there. They call it an angel hoop for a pretty good reason. You don't want that torque tube or that drive shaft to be, breaking in front of you and causing a lot of damage.
And that has happened before. As a matter of fact, that happened to Tony Stewart. That was a big thing for him when he was driving a sprint car, right?
Yep, it's happened to Tony Stewart. It's happened to Terry McCarl. I mean, it's happened. I would say every driver has had a torsion tube or a torque tube, or drive shaft wreck in their career.
Biggest thing that you take away from driving one of these that people may not realize that aren't in the cockpit of one of these, what stands out to you?
The sheer horsepower, as soon as you touch the gas, you're going. It's hard to explain. It really is. They're so fun. You have 5 minutes of your own time. You're in the car, you're having fun, and there's no experience like it on Earth.
What is the hardest part about getting used to that? I mean, we all get in our regular cars and we step on the pedal and we get up to 25 and 35 and 45. What's it like to go from 20 to 90 in the span of just a couple of seconds?
You get used to it right away. I mean, it would take 5 seconds to go from 20 to 90 when you're a rookie. And Mark Dobmeyer here, he goes from 20 to 90 in about a second and a half sometimes. So it just takes experience to get up there, and it's all feel and it's all experience.
All right, that's Chris Sherrick. That's Shop Talk here in Mark Dobmeyer's Show.
All right, thanks, fellas. Well, that's going to do it for us for this week. For Brian, Sean, Greg Ankers, and our producer, Max Jensen, I am Jay Elson. Enjoy the races, everyone. We'll see you next time.